Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some news to go over in Wuthering Waves, and that is, of course, the drip marketing for the newest character that will be arriving in version 2.6's second half, Chu Yan. And boy, oh boy, I feel like a lot of people have been waiting for this guy, because let's just be honest here. I think he fits a lot of the aesthetics. He's like that wandering swordsman. He's got that big old ponytail. He's got like all that stuff going on. He fits like the archetype of like the Chinese wuxia, that sort of character, Murim, whatever you want to define it as. And I feel like this has just been one of the most hyped up male character releases in the history of the game, because let's just be real here. They put quite a bit of work into refining this design. And so why don't we go ahead? Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we start breaking down, everything that's in the splash art, some of the materials that we've been shown before, and then also take a bit of a look at the environment and scenery before getting into what we can think about when it comes to like his kit, his moveset, his attribute, all of that. So that's going to be the agenda. Let's get right on into it. So first things first, one strike to settle it all after the post-lament anthropocene, whatever, all that shit, right? So I can kind of just imagine from like what we're seeing over here, maybe he's like one of those characters that deals like big old nukes of damage. I don't know why they would get this quote in particular if that wasn't like a cornerstone of his kit. It seems like he might be very, very reliant on crit rate. Just something to keep in mind. When it comes to like all of the other setup, like the environment that we're seeing over here, Qiuyuan is actually in Mount Firmament. If you're familiar with like the background, obviously it's like snowy and shit. These are the wind chimers that you actually collected back in version 1.1 to get things like Spectral Rover's wave bands, all of that stuff. You would like either shoot these or like you'd have to like climb up and like hit them, right? So this is in line with the archive statement over here. Chu Yan, a swordsman of cool resilience and absolute integrity, wandering Huang Long alone. He seeks not fame nor high office, but mastery of swordsmanship and a life guided by high morals. So you can just imagine in version 2.7, we're going to be making a visit back to 1.0, Jinzhou, all of that stuff. I think people should be pretty happy with that, since there's been a lot of requests for it to, maybe go back, explore some of the storylines of some older units. And I think that if he's arriving from Huang Long, there's probably going to be some context, right, about how he's making his way into the fucking Renacida story all the way from over there. And yeah, I mean, I think that he's almost like he's a promise fulfilled in so many different ways, both, on the male side as well as like the story involvement side. And as far as we're concerned, when it comes to story involvement, he did have a very, very peak moment over here, right, where he took the spotlight going against some TDs. I got no idea where he is, but to me, this doesn't look like Huang Long. So, yeah, making his way from Renacida all the way over here. And, well, a lot of people have also been theorizing that he's blind, that he can't actually see because it's, all gray and shit up here. And if you do a bit of a zoom in on the art and you just take a quick look, he still looks like he can't fucking see. So, that might be a unique characteristic about his kit. Next thing that I wanted to talk about over here is this idea of swordsmanship that he's got going on. One thing that's been consistent about Chu Yan and all of the materials that he's been featured in is the fact that he doesn't actually have any swords or weapons in his splash art. And this is the part to me that really sticks out like a bit of a sore thumb, is that you can look at like the splash art or the drip marketing of every other character, right? You look at Galbraina, and she's clearly, right? Well, let's just be honest here, right? Galbraina clearly has a gun in her splash art, right? You look at all the other materials before, it's like, where's the teaser? Oh, that's probably gonna get me some NSFW. Whoopsies. This is the drip that we had before, and you can clearly see the bow chakram sort of thing over here. You've also got the Augusta drip over here, and it clearly shows the sword. But then in every single context where Chu Yan shows up, either in this drip marketing or in his teaser that he had before, well, guys, it's like you never see a fucking sword next to him. You never see a sword. All you see is like this weird fishing rod sort of thing. And so the take from a lot of people, and the personal take from myself, is that he's not actually a sword-based character, despite the fact that he's been talked about as a swordsman this entire time. This is my point of view on his design and what my predictions will be regarding his kit. And don't worry, at the time of filming, there is absolutely no leaks out there. I think that he's a rectifier user. He's got the sort of like chi power, something going on where he's going to summon swords. Think about like a Yan Qing from Honkai Star Rail, those type of units. You know, they'll like, you know, come from like the sides. Think like Irelia from like League of Legends, that sort of stuff. He'll like control the swords and they'll like attack while he does like, you know, weird like hand motions and shit like that. That's what I'm imagining for his kit, based off the fact that Kuro seems to be really reluctant to show him with a sword, despite actually being a swordsman. And I feel like that also fits in with the whole like wuxia Chinese, the whole like Murim sort of aesthetic, because they do a bunch of shit like ride swords, summon swords, throw swords at enemies. That's kind of like one of the big things about that genre. So that's just my prediction overall when it comes to like his kit, when it comes to like his playstyle, when it comes to like his animations. Now let's do a little bit more and talk about what his attribute might be. And the way that we're going to find out about the attribute is by, well, just simply taking a look at this teaser over here. And this might tell us quite a lot, especially when we take a look at some of the materials, the Sonata sets, and the existing echoes that are already in the game. We'll also be exploring some of the new weapons, too, from the Battle Pass. So let's take a look at this. What did that look like, ladies and gentlemen? That looks like a slash of wind. With leaves that are getting carried away by the wind. Guys, I think this character might be Arrow. The take on my end is that this unit, ladies and gentlemen, might just be Arrow. And if that's the case, if that's the situation, then we might have a bit of an attribute debacle on our hands. Big focus on this like JBL speaker that he's got going on. A lot of people have like memed about it. It's like a fishing rod with like a JBL speaker attached onto it. This is my thing. I think that this is his rectifier. I think that he's a rectifier user, and this is like his signature weapon. It's like a fucking JBL speaker on a piece of bamboo. I'm not even joking. And like, maybe it's also like his walking stick. He has like a walking stick plus like rectifier JBL speaker combo. That's what I'm thinking over here. Or this like actually transforms into a sword, and like this is his signature weapon. Otherwise, why is this the first fucking thing zoomed into? Like, it's... like, what even is this, brother? Is it, like, water? Like, what is this? So, I don't think anybody is supposed to know at this point. I'm split between rectifier or sword, but you can clearly see why there's not really a definitive answer to the question. Okay. Then we got the zoom in on the rest of his design, and I think his eyes are closed for a reason here. And then they open and he doesn't look like he's looking at anything. And then you got the whole like Mount Firmament background. It would have been cool maybe if there was like a little bit of like Qiuyuan somewhere just to like signify it's Mount Firmament. But I'm not going to make too much of a big deal out of it. Just excited to see how he's going to bring some life to the region. But yeah, that's going to be the main clue over here. It's a literal slash of wind. I don't think this is very mistakable for most people. It's a slash of wind. It's flowing leaves. And it, you know, signifies that whole sort of like one cut stuff going on. Now let's read this short little description that they have for it. Bamboo leaves, and this might be another spoiler. Bamboo leaves dance in the wind. A light rain is starting to fall. Chu Yan holds his breath, light bouncing off his sharp blade. He senses the enemy's state of mind and weak spot, and like a flash, the blade flies out. The enemy is done for. So, yeah, clearly you got some arrow over here. You got some Glacio, or more arrow over here. You got Spectra over here. But let's just be honest here. Based off of what we're looking at, arrow seems to be the most likely. And, well, there's actually some existing pieces, some existing things in-game that would support the idea that he's an arrow damage dealer, or an arrow echo skill damage dealer. So let's talk about that. All right, so this is the Remini Fenrico Echo that was introduced in version 2.5, one version ago. This Echo has absolutely no user on the roster. And the reason for that is quite simple. This bonus, this passive bonus, is arrow damage and heavy attack damage, right? It's a nice combination for a character like Qiuyuan, but the sets that it is on don't really work with Qiuyuan, right? You have Law of Harmony, which requires echo skills to actually gain its bonus, and the bonus duration is really short, so it requires repeated activations of an echo skill across your rotation, which Qiuyuan can't do. And you also got Dream of the Lost over here, which requires you to have 0 resonance energy to increase your crit rate and grant you a 35% echo skill damage bonus. Also not usable on Qiuyuan. And these are the only 2 sets that the Remini Fenrico Echo is on. The only 2 sets that give this 4-cost passive bonus of arrow and heavy attack damage. And this is my take, based off the existing sets, the existing typing over here. I think Chu Yan is going to be an arrow heavy attack damage dealer. And I think that Chu Yan, based off the fact that he seems to have like this swordsman but no sword aesthetic, I think that he's going to summon swords that deal echo skill damage. He's going to summon multiple swords that deal echo skill damage. And he's also going to use the Remini Fenrico Echo and one of the 2 sets, Law of Harmony or Dream of the Lost. Naturally, if he doesn't have a resonance energy cost, it would make a lot of sense why he's on this set. I don't know, that might be a cool thing if he actually has no resonance energy cost and he, works out this way. Does some sort of like unlimited blade works thing with like his liberation or something like that. That'd be pretty damn sick. And one thing that I wanted to point out in regards to the idea of swords being summoned as echoes is that idea sounds crazy, but they've already done it in-game. Yeah, you can already summon swords as echoes in this game. They already did it with Cartithias. And so maybe Chu Yan, maybe the lore behind him summoning swords as echoes is based off of all of like the past challengers that he's beaten before. And he like captures their Reminis and then like uses their swords in combat. That would be like kind of badass. That would actually be kind of cool if like he uses like the fallen swords of like his past foes and then uses their echoes in combat and like summons them around and stuff. Because I mean, let's just be real here, guys. This is what the echo skill looks like of Cartithias. I mean, that's like kind of what we're thinking, but just a whole kit centered around that. So yeah, that's some further reinforcement for the echo skills as summonable swords theory crafting that I'm doing over here. And this is the big thing about this, ladies and gentlemen. This echo set, like I mentioned before, has had no user. And if the user doesn't arrive in version 2.7 with Chu Yan, this will have not had a user for 3 consecutive versions. It's a little bit weird for them to introduce an echo in version 2.5, and it has no actual user until version 2.8 or beyond. The longest that we've ever had a 4-cost echo that hasn't been usable before is Midnight Veil with Lorelei. Lorelei was released in version 2.0, and it did not have a user until Cantarella in version 2.3. Or sorry, Cantarella was in 2.2. So it's been a max of 2 versions for an echo to become usable on the roster. We are currently already over 1 version, and by the end of 2.6, that version is going to be over. And then at the start of 2.7, or in the middle of 2.7, that's when it's going to hit the 2 versions. And remember what I said before, there aren't even any leaks available for the 2 units. I think he's going to use this stuff. Otherwise, it doesn't make any fucking sense for why they would have put this shit in the game so many versions in advance. If it's not for Chu Yan, or not for Galbraina, though I don't know how Galbraina would be arrow. If it's not for either of those 2, ladies and gentlemen, it would have been 80 plus days of this shit being in the game and not being usable by anybody. Maybe they were bored, but it doesn't seem like something that Kuro would just put in willy-nilly unless there was going to be an intended user soon. So that's going to be my take. And just some additional experimentation that's been done in-game. Apparently, when you use the new Echo Lock feature and you set a simplified plan, which means the game automatically completes it for you, and then you select a 3 cost for arrow damage, the Law of Harmony set is actually built into the recommended automatically done settings by Kuro themselves. So naturally that makes a lot of sense because once again the Fenrico Echo, which gives arrow damage, is on it. But just something to think about, right? A little bit interesting, right? Now let's talk a little bit more about the weapon typing, all of that stuff, because that's a potentially more interesting conversation. What I've done before for the Galbraith drip marketing was, of course, take a look at the Hunter's Growl weapon series. Because when it comes to the Hunter's Growl weapon series, it's clear that all of their effects are tailored around the new Septimonte units. For example, I've already covered this before, you have the Broadblade, which has the same damage typing, heavy attack, as Augusta's signature. Then you got the Aether Strike, which has the same damage typing as Yuno's signature, resonance, liberation damage, and attack. Then, of course, right, you got this situation over here with Radiant Dawn. This one gives basic attack after casting a resonance skill. And then the sword, well, the sword gives attack and liberation damage. Doesn't really seem to match up with the discussion that we've had before. Assuming that Qiuyuan is arrow and heavy attack, then it looks like these new additions to the game don't necessarily actually work on him. And so we've used this as a bit of reinforcement for our take before, that Galbraith is meant to be a heavy attack damage dealer that does, that uses pistols. And so this is an example of where we can't necessarily use that same argument. But this is the thing, right? That echo skill, that bonus to heavy attack, it seems to be directly contradicting some of the stuff that we talked about before. But the reality of the situation is that we don't know, right? Maybe he is a liberation damage dealer. Maybe he is split. Or perhaps there is just going to be a mismatch when it comes to the signature that he has and the BP weapons that are already in the game. Maybe Kuro is looking to get some extra dollary dues out of his banner. Maybe because he's released in the same time frame as Zhang Liao, maybe Qiuyuan is being given to us for free, kind of like as a homecoming gift back to Huanglong, because this is also being released during the Moon Chasing Festival, where Zhang Liao was given out for free. And so perhaps the fact that Qiuyuan doesn't really have like a BP weapon is based off the fact that we're getting him for free, and the expectation is that most people are just gonna pull his weapon. Much like how when Zhang Liao was given out for free, a lot of people pulled a copy of Verity's Handle. This is where we're getting into the copium, you could say perhaps drug-induced takes, but it kind of makes sense to me if he's being given out for free, has some damage types that don't necessarily match, but you easily have the pulls with the guaranteed weapon banner to, get a copy of it anyways, and then you'll have the character S0R1. So this is all just like a big bundle of coincidences, right? But it's not surprising. I mean, it should be viewed at a little bit critically, right? That it's been almost an exact year since Zhang Liao was released. Zhang Liao was free, and now Qiuyuan, another male character, is also being released at the exact same time frame as Zhang Liao in the year prior when he was given out for free. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. Isn't that a little bit interesting? That's a little bit interesting, isn't it, guys? Might be just a coincidence, might be actually based in true. So that's going to be my approach to this entire thing. I think that based off of the echoes in the game, based off of that teaser, it's kind of clear that he might probably just be arrow. Heavy attack as well from the Fenrico Echo. And none of the weapons line up from the BP pass, if that's what the typing is going to be. But it, I don't think that's enough to solidify us anyways. Because, hey, right, maybe Chisa is the last character that's going to use one of these, and then this is meant to be just like a free-to-play option. Or sorry, not really free-to-play. This is meant to be more of like a low-spender option for those that want like that want something different than like Abyss Surges or something like that. Or yeah, they want something other than like Cosmic Ripples over here, because this thing doesn't give crit. So that might just be the situation, but we gotta find out, boys. We gotta find out, ladies and gentlemen, because one thing for certain, when it comes to Qiuyuan and when it comes to my investment, how I'm gonna be building him, yeah, we're gonna be making this probably the best S0R1 Qiuyuan. Their names are actually really similar. The best S0R1 Chu Yan in the history of the game. So, yeah, get ready for that one. You're all gonna get cooked. So that'll be that, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you all thought about all the drip that you see over here, the Huang Long stuff, and of course the theory crafting that we're doing based off of, you know, some of the clues that we have in game. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, there, at the time of this recording, absolutely no leaks at all regarding anything coming up in the new version. So, yeah, no, this is all just cookery on our ends. Let me know what you all thought. Peace.